Formula One the movie.
Drivers, do you copy me? Stand by.
It's hard to fake speed and action, especially in Formula One.
And release the cars.
Brad Pitt is actually driving the car, and they're driving at crazy speeds around these F1 tracks. They train consistently.
Yeah, it's so much fun, man. We'll rock it out of there.
You'll pass me now, Dustin, on my left.
They focus on repetition.
Come on, boys. Keep pushing faster, faster.
They get faster and more confident. The more they do it, the better they get.
On the streets.
They go fast, and they love it.
That's fun. Just wanted to keep on going.
That was really good, guys. Yeah, good job. Great.
3 laps. 3 laps is a lifetime.
Once again, Hans Zimmer does the music in this film. He spent a lot of time talking to Lewis Hamilton, who also was a producer on the film. Hans asked Lewis what it was like to be inside that machine, what it's like to be that guy. That really influenced how Hans wanted the orchestra to sound. It's dangerous, yet incredibly elegant, says Hans. Hans writes the kind of melodies that for whatever reason, they stick in your head, and he did a great job with this film as well. One of the things he tried to do is to make it sound like in the cinema, as if you're truly experiencing a true race in real life. It's not just what you see, it's also what you hear. Formula One's history is filled with stories. Teams that come out of nowhere and somehow find a way to pull off a miracle. When we first meet Apex, the team, they're out of options. They're out of ideas. They can't catch a break.
Oh, I'm jammed!
The story's about a bunch of underdogs.
What are you doing here, Sonny?
Sonny Hayes, Brad Pitt's character, is coming back because he wants to feel worthy. He wants to find his purpose. Formula One driver can't win a race by themselves. It takes a team. Everybody must fire on all cylinders, including the car, to achieve the impossible. It's also about what it's like to be comrades. That's the true heartbeat of the film. Surrounded by the beauty of Formula One racing, you can talk about speed. The film makes you feel it. They had developed a special camera technology for Top Gun Maverick, and it was groundbreaking. Now, on F1, they've pushed it even further. They had unprecedented access to the F1 roster of events, to the tracks. Capturing footage for this story was awesome. The energy of the crowd, all the F1 drivers, the cars. It's going to help give this film this kind of grounded quality that they're looking for. It's always better to overachieve than underachieve, and boy, did we overachieve, says the director, Joseph Klinsky.
Oh my.
They accomplished something that hadn't been done before. F1 is unlike anything they've ever filmed. It's incredible. Whether you're a fan or not, they'll show the world why it's the pinnacle of motorsports. In Formula One, if you win, you are the absolute best in the world. Joseph Kazinski wanted to make the most authentic racing film he could. For this film, the question was, where does Sonny Hayes come from?
Action.
At the beginning of the film, Lewis Hamilton felt endurance racing would be a great place for Sonny Hayes to be found. To become a Formula One driver, it takes a lot of the same ingredients that it does to become a long endurance racer. There have been many drivers that have been in endurance racing and have returned to Formula One and had great results. In the opening, we find Sonny Hayes driving for Chip Hart Racing, sponsored by Peak at Daytona. Daytona is one of the most challenging racetracks. The grit and endurance, what the athletes have to go through. You have to have massive banking and a huge grandstand with a stadium-like atmosphere. When they went to the Daytona 24-hour race, they were pushing, they were banging wheels. It was very intense, but very cool. Endurance racing wouldn't be the same without Porsche. So it's only logical that Sonny Hayes is driving a Porsche. So Joseph, the director, called up Porsche. Racing is part of Porsche's DNA, and they provided GTR race cars for the film. The car is the Pinnacle. It competes in GT series worldwide. When this opportunity came up, it felt like if Porsche could be part of it, it was a no-brainer. They shut down the Porsche Experience Center in Carson for the film, gave them free run of the place. They also provided the training. One of the people they brought in was Patrick Long, a factory works race driver for Porsche. Patrick is the real deal. He won the Daytona 24 Hours. In Le Mans, he's been incredible. He was incredibly valuable to the film. With the training in the GT cars, they wanted to be connected with a real team because they wanted that authenticity. So they found Wright Motorsports, which is a privateer Porsche race team that runs at Daytona. They rebranded as Chip Hart Racing. Their team were able to provide support for the film while shooting, and they actually drove the car in the real Daytona 24 Hour. There was a car that wasn't part of production in the Chip Hart livery on track racing. Pat Long gets to play himself in the film. Pull in, Pat actually hands it off to Sonny Hayes. Casting Pat Long as a co-driver was the sort of thing that makes this film special. Pat Long says having a cameo was just a big gift. Without Porsche, they wouldn't have had access to the cars, providing the training. All of that was incredible. Being there and being able to support motorsport is something Porsche is always wanting to do. This movie is going to break down barriers of how they bring motorsport to life. Joseph Kazinski says IMAX is a very special format. When you go to an IMAX theater, you know that that theater is set up just as the filmmakers have intended.
You gave up racing. Must be surreal to be back. Yeah.
The bigger the screen, the more you're going to feel it. The speed, the physics of being in the car. Brad and Dansom, the actors, are actually driving the cars. What Joe was able to do with these cameras and this amazing crew was capture real-time speed. It's just exhilarating, says Lewis Hamilton. We're putting viewers right there on the track, says Zimmer. The cameras that they developed for this film are able to deliver that big screen experience. What Joseph loves about IMAX is you're getting the most immersive experience, not just because of the size of the screen, but the quality of the sound. Finally, people will get to feel what it's like to be a racing driver, says Lewis Hamilton. This movie is going to be one of those that you cannot miss on the biggest screen possible, says Javier Bardem. Quality of sound, visuals, color, everything is going to be transfixing. It's going to look amazing in IMAX. The expanded aspect ratio on the giant screen really puts you inside the film in a way that no other format does, says Joseph Kazinski. The goal of the film was to give people the experience of what it's like to be in a Formula One car. Only 20 people in the world get to do that. Working with their producing partner, Lewis Hamilton, they developed a new camera system and built their own race car for the film in order to capture the experience of what it's like to drive one of these cars. So what you're seeing is something that was captured for real. IMAX is the best way to experience that immersive quality of the film. There's like 12 racing sequences in this film, and they didn't want to be switching aspect ratios too many times back and forth. So when Joseph watched it all in IMAX, he realized he might as well keep it in this format all the way through. This is his 5th film he's done in IMAX, but this is the first time he'll keep it in that aspect ratio all the way through. They took the same camera system that they developed in Top Gun Maverick and had to miniaturize it, had to make it much smaller and lighter, but they couldn't compromise the quality at all. They needed it to hold up on the biggest screens in the world. With cinematographer Claudio Miranda, they worked for almost a year to develop this camera system and a new camera mount that actually rotates the camera left and right, which is another innovation that they created for this film. But if we look back 60 or so years ago to a little film called Grand Prix, you'll see it's not a new invention.
The idea was put the audience in the car. We fooled around for months. experimenting with various places to put the camera and with various lenses.
When we first started testing lenses and cameras and trying to figure out just the best look that we were going to have on Grand Prix, we would be trying out different vibration-proof mounts and ways of dampening the vibration that you would get in a camera mounted to a race car. And we found out that by not using any vibration-proof mounts and just locking it to the car and going with a certain amount of shake and jiggle and everything that the camera would give you and make the picture look twice as exciting and it looked real.
They did it all the way back then. Camera was a little bit bigger, but for this film, they shrunk the size and were able to rotate the camera. They were thinking about their IMAX experience while shooting this, and they were trying to make sure everything that they were doing was trying to capture that sense of speed that Lewis said he hadn't seen in a racing movie. It was Lewis, but also Toto Wolff, the team principal of Mercedes, who basically recommended, rather than build a movie car that can go on the racetrack, why don't you start with a race car and then modify it to shoot the movie? So that's what they did. They bought 6 race cars, F2 cars, and they worked with Mercedes-AMG F1 team to modify them to make them look just like Formula 1 cars, but also work in all the recorders, batteries, and camera equipment that they needed into the body of the car so that they could mount the very small camera onto it. So they built 15 camera mounts onto the car. They were able to shoot 4 different angles at a time. This is a real race car with cameras mounted on it. What you're seeing is real speed. Because they shot this film at real Grand Prix races, they needed the cooperation from all the teams on the grid. Since they were shooting in the middle of the race, the real F1 drivers playing themselves in the film. So they needed their cooperation and permission to shoot around them. They found that once they explained how they were trying to make the most authentic racing movie ever made and how they were approaching it, all the drivers were open and willing to share their ideas and their story and play themselves in the film and drive their real cars and to be able to race right next to them. They were fantastic and they could have made the film without them. It was an incredible experience to film at those races and capture the energy that you couldn't get any other way. It was also incredibly nerve-wracking, says Joseph Kazinski, because instead of having a day to shoot a scene, or maybe a few hours, sometimes you'd only have a few minutes because they're shooting during a live event, so they had to be incredibly prepared. The actors had to be at the top of their game, knowing you might only get one take, but if they pulled it off, the result would be something that people had never seen before. When you see Brad's face in the movie, what you see is he's acting, but he's also trying to concentrate so he doesn't go off the track. That concentration is real. Having him and Danson both willing to drive these cars and go out there in front of a crowd on Grand Prix weekend and actually drive the scenes is pretty incredible. And it's very nerve-wracking because it is dangerous. They're going incredibly fast. The tracks are designed for safety, but the speeds they're going is incredible. Joseph brought in the same sound team that worked with him on Top Gun Maverick. They came out to the races and they recorded all the cars. They're actually allowed to install microphones on the real F1 cars, which was a tricky thing to do, to capture the real sounds of the engines. They also had microphones all around the track, capturing the sounds of the crowd, the cars that went by. There's a very distinct sound that these cars make, and there's 4 different engines on the grid that all have their own distinct sound and personality. So they spent 18 months going from track to track, recording the sounds. There are times that it really felt like they were a team on the grid. At Silverstone, they had a garage right between Mercedes and Ferrari. They were shooting their scenes while the race was happening in the background. You can't recreate the energy of a F1 weekend unless you do it for real. They went all around the world, from Silverstone to Abu Dhabi, to experience the Las Vegas track, which only exists for a few nights, so they got to do some pretty incredible stuff. Ambition, to Joseph Kazinski, is trying to challenge yourself or do something that hasn't been done before. His goal was to capture the most authentic racing film ever made. They worked with Mercedes-AMG throughout the film to ensure the authenticity of the cars they were putting on the screen. Damson Idris said jumping in those cars was definitely the first time he really felt immersed in the world of F1. These aren't movie cars, these are race cars from the start that they developed with Mercedes-AMG specifically for making this film. Mercedes-AMG in the world of F1 was an incredible partner, working hand in hand with their designers and engineers to find cavities under the radiators where they could place the camera recording equipment. So there's a lot of innovation, and the coordination of all that engineering took a year to pull it off. AMG created a special edition car, the same livery as the F1 car, but this time for the street. It's the new AMG Apex Edition. These aren't special effects rigs or movie cars made to look like real race cars. Brad and Dansom are driving the cars themselves, going over 200 miles an hour. Authenticity was the goal with this film. Claudio Miranda, ASC, was the director of photography, and he says Joe and him were always pushing for realism, real immersiveness. F1 was really exciting for them to do and figure out new ways to capture speed. They'd done it with jets on Top Gun Maverick, but the challenges of doing it on a car were going to be very different. That meant developing some bespoke, lightweight camera packages. Claudio worked very closely with Sony for a number of films and have always been testing the latest generation of cameras. Claudio approached Sony about making a smaller camera. He said, "It's ideal if it's just a sensor on a stick, as small as they could go." They definitely wanted quality as well. It wasn't about putting micro cameras that don't just give a filmic sense. They still wanted to have shallow depth of field and full frame and strive for filmic images. It was a very fast timeline for Sony to put together a camera in so few months. It was really remarkable. They ended up getting 25 bespoke cameras from Sony. They used every single one of them. There's 16 different camera positions all around the car that they use in all different various forms. Tail, rear, side, looking front, there's profile. They have them all over the car. They also wanted the cameras to actually pan. This is the brand new Sony camera. Full frame sensor, 4K, and they've also attached a focus motor, and it uses a Preston motor to control the pan so they can move the camera while they're shooting. So they can pan while looking forward, back to Brad's face. Putting it on was one thing, and the next thing was to manage all the vibrations at 200 miles an hour. There's a bit of vibration isolation there. It's all manually done based on the kind of tires they have and how rough the track is, what time of day it is. There's so many variables. They just have to send it out and look and adjust to each individual situation. They needed the camera package to be a fraction of the size it was on Top Gun. They had to separate the sensor from the recording unit, so they hid all the equipment. That's the recording unit of the camera. They have two of them on that side and two on the other side. These cars don't have trunks or glove compartments, so they had to improvise. There's a lot of innovation to shoot this the way that they wanted to. You're going to see camera angles and points of view that you've never seen before. Audiences are going to get a perspective of what it's like to be in one of these F1 machines.